Kenny, what are the principles of true leadership? I think in men, not men's, but just in men in general. What would you say to that?
Listening, collaborating, and being true. I believe one of the main differences between boys and men is boys make a lot of noise to prove their masculinity and need to have power over in the hierarchy, where men, it's more about being than doing, not really having much to prove. It's not about proving, because that would mean I feel less than, and I need to show you that I'm more. So men are in power and can empower others. Men can listen and respond, where boys generally don't listen and they react. And reaction generally comes from fear and panic. I mean, there is a time and a place for reaction. If there's danger, react. But as a way of life, that's toxic. That's a lot of cortisol. And I know that through the traumas that I had in life, my body was addicted to adrenaline. And I needed to unlearn that and to come from endorphins, which is calm, and it grows good energy, rather than it being manic and it drains and it just keeps being hungry for more and more. And if I'm true to myself, then surely everyone around me has an invitation to meet in some truth and depth. If I'm putting on a good show, hoping everyone's going to like me, then I'm telling everyone else, you put on a good show, let's all be frauds together, because this is the way to do it. It's not the way I want, it's not what I want to be around. That lacks the depth. It lacks a purpose. It lacks a unity.
One of the really interesting stories that you told me last night was about hunting lions, right? And the group and how that works. Do you want to? I think it was a great example. I think people would love to hear that.
I met this excellent guy in Kenya, and thankfully he spoke perfect English, and he told me about his initiation into being a man. And there are stories going around about you have to kill a lion, but what I didn't realize was that he gets prepared. The whole village, the men get prepared to go out into the jungle together. Well, I guess they kind of live there, but to go out together and to come from the right place. And for me, this is the intimacy amongst men and the trust in working together, because the object of the exercise is that he kills a lion. In order to do that, as men, they need to go in quietly together, risk all their lives to surround the lion, so no one gets killed and he kills it. Not anyone else, but he kills it. And to be risking their lives and going in as a collective consciousness and being able to communicate with each other and be that in tune to do something with honor and respect. It almost feels sacred in a strange way. I mean, totally socially unacceptable to say this, I guess, but I'm telling his story, and oh my God, I was so blown away when he told me about how it was and what it was like coming back to the village. There's another part of the story that I didn't tell you about. This is a bit of a cheeky part.
Hit me.
We got on great, and we had some really great chats, and he said, look, why don't you come and stay in my village tonight, and you can choose which hut you want to sleep in. And before I did that, my father was born in Kenya, and my father kind of knows some of the tribal languages and customs and things. He used to drive trains between Kenya and Uganda, and he's basically said, do you realize that if you you choose which hut and which wife comes with that hut, and you put your spear outside the hut, and that means that you are in this hut and no other man enters, and you're obliged to be with that wife. And if you don't, it's a huge insult. So I didn't stay over.
No, you didn't make the choice. Were you married at the time?
I wasn't, but
that idea of community, like I had no idea that they had that sense of community. The story about the lion is one thing, but then also like the sharing of love, like the sharing of each other's wives and stuff as an act of respect to someone coming in. I had no idea.
And it's so easy to judge from our perspective of what's right, what's wrong, how things should be, etc., etc. Before I left the UK, as you say, I traveled around a lot of countries and did a lot of things and took part as much as I could with various cultures. I thought I had an idea about good manners and respect and, how to be with people. Wherever I went, my God, I had so much to unlearn about my conditioning, my separation, my bad manners, how separate I was. And even in their culture, if something was totally different to my culture, I needed to experience myself coming from there to really question what is true for me. Not what do I judge as good or bad or right or wrong, but I needed to know myself there. And I have learned so much about myself by being accepted by different communities. It's been the hugest, biggest lessons in my life. And it's opened me up. You could say it's opened me up to vulnerability. It's opened me up to life. It's opened me up to people. It's opened me up beyond restriction to possibilities, to love, to connection. I'm sounding like a hippie now, eh?
No, but it sounds like it totally. I know so many people can relate to that. And when you say, you had to unlearn things about what was right and wrong, because there are people that you meet along the way who have convictions just as strong as yours, but might be the exact opposite actual like procedure, or custom, that you start to learn that there is no right and wrong. There really is just like you being in that space and experiencing this from a completely different perspective. And that's what's so magical about traveling if you do it right. I 100% agree. I can relate to that. And we were talking about India. Like India, I got a lot of that.
And the interesting thing is sometimes it's so much easier to relate it to India, but to bring it back home and to be at loggerheads with a friend or a colleague or a lover or whoever and have an argument rather than realizing, actually, not only am I right from my perspective, but so are they. And now what are we going to do? Now, where are we going to meet? Now, how do we take this further? It's fine to do it out there, but the only thing that exists is here and now.